Let's talk about a coming disaster that is headed our way. And you might be thinking, could you be more specific? I mean, which disaster are we talking about? And that's a fair point. Seems that so many things are going wrong all at once because of this absolute madman that the American people in their infinite wisdom saw fit to elect as president, which will go down as probably the dumbest decision in human history to reelect that guy. Now, in this, what I'm talking about here, and I've got to make this quick, but I'm going to return to this issue in subsequent videos. What I'm talking about here is the economic disaster that is coming our way, brought on by our massive debt, coupled with the fact that we have an unhinged lunatic as president of the United States. I was looking the numbers up this morning. Do you know how much money we spend on interest on the debt? Our debt is over $36 trillion. Do you know how much money we spend each year on interest to service that debt? Well, in the first half of fiscal year 2025, we've already spent more than $500 billion on interest on the debt. It is currently projected that we will spend $952 billion on interest payments alone in fiscal year 2025. To put that in perspective, you know how much we spend on defense spending? All of our defense spending? About $100 billion less than we spend on interest on our national debt. That, my friends, is not sustainable. And we are adding to our $36 trillion national debt at the rate of about $2 trillion each and every year. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't our deficit spending coming down because of all the cuts made by Doge? No. Even adding up all of the cuts, all the firings, all the program cuts that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are putting into place, many of which are just bullshit lies. They're not actually cutting anything. When you add all of it up, it's a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. In fact, we are spending more this year than we did last year, even taking into consideration all of the Doge spending cuts. So it's not making any difference at all. And so our spending is going through the roof. Our borrowing, just adding more than $2 trillion each and every year. And here's what's going to bring on the disaster. The fact that we've elected this madman to be president, and you've seen what's happened with the tariffs. The rest of the world is waking up to the fact that the United States is no longer a stable republic. It's no longer a stable economy. You know, the United States was a place to put your money when you wanted little risk, all right? You'd buy up American debt because you know that America would make good on those debt obligations. And interest rates on our debt have been relatively low because there's little risk involved in buying up America's debt. But that's no longer the case. And what precipitated the Mad King last week reversing himself on the tariffs and putting a 90-day pause on the tariffs. And by the way, not all the tariffs, just some of the tariffs. And many of the countries for which he paused the tariffs, there's already tariffs in place that he put in place that are not on pause. I mean, we have tariffs on top of tariffs on top of tariffs. He only paused some layers of the tariffs, but other layers are still there. And he increased tariffs on China over 100%. What is it now? 154% or something on China? The tariffs put in place against Mexico and Canada are still in place. Anyway, so they're not even walked back entirely. But to the extent he walked them back at all, that was brought on. Trump's hand was forced. His people convinced him to put that 90-day pause into effect because people were dumping American debt. And the yields on T-bills were going through the roof, meaning that the United States is forced to pay more money, higher interest rates for people to buy our debt, because countries around the world, specifically Japan in this case last week, was dumping American bonds because they realized that the United States is no longer a stable economy. It no longer is governed by rule of law. It is governed by the whims of a freaking lunatic. And it's no longer a safe place to park your money. Buying up America's debt is more risky now. And here's the thing. Donald Trump talks about all these freeloading countries taking advantage of us. The truth of the matter is the rest of the world is propping us up by buying our debt. If the rest of the world all got together and decided, you know what, let's just destroy the United States, they could do it. They could just say, we're not buying any more of America's debt, and watch them just collapse. We would collapse as a country like that if the rest of the world said, we've had enough. None of us are going to buy up any more of America's debt. Therefore, America can't borrow any more money. We won't be able to spend $2 and $3 trillion more each year than we bring in taxes because we won't be able to borrow it. And as I said, we're borrowing we're accumulating more than $2 trillion of debt each and every year. And next year, we're almost at $1 trillion just in interest payments on the debt this year. Next year, it's projected to be over $1 trillion just on interest on the debt. We are borrowing $1 trillion every year just to pay the interest payments on the money we've already borrowed. This is insane. This would be like a personal household having such massive credit card debt that you can't make minimum payments. So you get new credit cards to borrow money against those credit cards to pay the minimum payments on the credit cards you've already run up and maxed out. That's what's happening to this country right now. And the rest of the world is cutting off the credit card. What would happen if that household who was borrowing on credit cards to pay off to pay minimum payments on their maxed out credit cards, what if they couldn't open any more lines of credit? They'd go bankrupt. They'd have no more money to pay any of the debt. That's what would happen to the United States if other countries decided to stop buying our debt. Or if, yields in the bond market go higher and higher and higher, and it gets more expensive and more expensive for us to finance our debt. The whole house of cards is going to come crumbling down. This entire society is being propped up by a mountain of debt. And we're only being propped up because other people around the world are willing to finance our debt by buying our bonds, by buying America's debt, lending us money. If they stop, we collapse. If it costs too much money because people are dumping our debt and yields are going up, if it costs too much money for us to even borrow the money to finance this friggin' disaster, it's all going to come crashing down. That's what we're headed headlong to. 100 miles an hour. This was a problem that's been coming for decades and decades. But now, because of what Donald Trump is doing, he is driving us off a cliff. This is where we are. I don't know where it's going, but that's where we are in this moment. We are headed for an economic disaster. We'll see. Nobody knows what the hell's going to happen next. Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow? Do you even know what's going to happen by the end of the day? Nobody does. Nobody anywhere around the world does, which is why the United States is no longer a safe place to put your money. We are not a stable republic. We have no rule of law. We have a freaking lunatic mad king who is clearly mentally ill, suffers from all kinds of personality disorder, is bent on vengeance and dominating people, exerting power. He's stupid as a human being can be. He has no idea how any of this works, and he doesn't care. And the political system in this country obviously isn't going to do a damn thing to stop him. We don't have to do this. We don't have to go down this road. We can stop this today. We could end this right now. Congress could impeach and remove him from office, but that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon, and maybe never. And so, towards the cliff at 100 miles an hour, we go. When the crash will happen, how bad it'll be, and what the hell this country will look like if and when it does happen, no idea. But looks like we're going to be finding out. So, happy Monday, everybody. Talk to you again soon.